Welcome, welcome, welcome to today's episode of Office Hour. It's been a while since I have been live on Office Hour, but it has been well worth the wait because today we're going to talk about a couple of things that are very exciting to me as someone who has worked in digital marketing and social media for a long time. And that is this idea of shifting community paradigms, the intersection of Web3 and new technology and new generations of users and personas and people who are using the internet and where are they hanging out online. So, before I bring on today's guest, I will do the typical housekeeping items. Please, please, please join us for the discussion in the community. We're talking about communities. We're talking about places where people meet online. We have a community for Social Media Pulse. And that link to join the conversation in the community, if you want to hop off of social media and watch it in the community, is socialmediapulse.info/OH December 15th for today's date. That conversation will last there forever. But if you are joining us on social, we're happy that you're joining us in that community space today. So, let's talk about today's topic. I kind of teased it a little bit, and I'm not going to tease it a whole lot because it's something that is a little bit new to me. This idea of people are changing where they're spending their time. And yes, even older generations like my generation, millennial, I'm kind of in that in between millennial and Gen X. I identify some with millennials, some with Gen X, but even the boomer generation and certainly Gen Z, we're carving out new places where people are spending their time online. And Gen Z in particular is really particular about how they connect online and where they spend their time and money. And so today, who better than to talk to us about how we kind of channel Gen Z is somebody who works with Gen Z every single day. So my guest today is Krissy Buck, who is the program chair for the digital marketing program at WSU Tech, just slightly north of me in Wichita, Kansas, a hub for innovation and industry and all things marketing related to those things. So she teaches Gen Z every day and is going to give us a little peek behind the curtain on how they're using community spaces. So welcome, Krissy.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here. I hear it's a busy day at Agora Pulse, so thanks for making time for me to talk about this thing that I love to nerd out about.
Yeah, absolutely. Of course, we want to make time for that. But you're right. At the end of the year, I think, you see that meme where it's slow speed chase with in December and all the various things that are going on behind you, the end of year things for work and the end of year things if you have family obligations or children. It's that time of year, but we definitely are glad that you made time for us today because I know you're busy too, to talk about this really cool new topic.
Yeah.
So, Krissy, before we really get into the topic of shifting community paradigms, can you tell me a little bit more about what you do day in and day out and how you developed an interest in both this topic of Web3, and Gen Z, and community management in particular?
Yeah. So about a decade ago, actually about 12 years ago, my family and we went out on mission with our church. And so we shifted our paradigm about what church looked like. So instead of inviting people to come to us, we went out to them. So serving our homeless community, getting to know our neighbors, which seems so foreign to people nowadays. You pull into your garage, you close the garage, you go into your house, you never see your neighbors. And so we really had to relearn how to connect with the people that were in our context. Fast forward, I went back to school to learn web development. And in the middle of the program, specifically JavaScript, I decided, this isn't for me. And I shifted my degree over to digital media. So I learned about video and web design and graphic design and photography. And I took one little class on digital marketing, never cracked open the book. I aced the class. And I, not because I'm super smart, but because I really enjoyed the topic. I really enjoyed how people connect online. And it was during that time that I kind of put some feelers out while networking, connecting with people offline. And I said, hey, I want to do social media marketing for some people if you know anybody. And somebody did need some help, and it was a tech company here in Wichita. And so I started as a social media manager working 5 hours a week. 3 years later, I was an officer of the company as the chief community officer. We pivoted 3 times. So we started as an online platform. We shifted into artificial intelligence in the HR space. And then we pivoted again to a product that most people know called QuiCC. And so we provided video captions for creators. And in 10 months, we had users in 77 countries. And I burned out. Startup life is hard. And that 10 months, it went fast, and it was crazy. And so I left in January of 2020. And at the end of the year, I was ready to be with community again. And so I applied to be an adjunct here at WSU Tech. And during my interview, they said, you'd be a good fit for our full-time position. And I said, nah, I don't want that. And then I thought about it, and I thought about all the amazing people that I had built this network with, like Tim Lewis, like Chris Stone. They've both spoken in my classes. Agora Pulse is a part of our program. All of these amazing people around the world that I've been able to connect my students with. And so I decided to go ahead and take the department chair position. And here I am. And this is my 2-year anniversary this month. So yeah. So
congratulations. That's exciting.
Yes. Something that's different about my program from other programs like English or even nursing is that, and you know this because you work in the industry, this stuff changes every day. So I have to be on top of what is happening in digital marketing every single day. And I have to apply that to the curriculum so that my students, when they go out, they're not 2 steps behind, that they're ready. They have these forward, innovative thinking concepts, and then they're ready to apply them into our ecosystems. And so I don't want them to graduate from WSU Tech, making quote posts for Instagram. That doesn't work anymore. We got to think ahead.
Oh, yeah. Krissy, I love that perspective, and I relate to that so much on a spiritual level, both as a former educator in higher education, and then in my current role, as doing education with social media pulse community. But I will say, based on reputation and based on results, that's exactly what you're doing at WSU Tech. You're preparing students who not only have the skills that they need today, but have that adaptability and that ability to think ahead and change, just the evolution of your career and how it's changed over time. It's still in the same realm, but you've had to learn skills along the way. You're providing that for your students. So us in the industry, thank you for that, for preparing people.
Yes. Well, I mean, I'm helping them realize their dreams. We say this little thing here at WSU Tech, we're changing lives every day. So that there is that side of it. But on the other side of it, I am creating a product. I am creating a workforce that's going to go out, and I want to make sure that they're prepared. My name is on that package. And so I want to make sure that they are prepared to go out and make a difference.
Yeah. And you mentioned community and some of the people in your community, and it's evident here in our comments. So we have Tim is saying hi in the comments, and Chris is saying hi in the comments. Hi, Chris. He was on my show here a month or so ago, or it's probably been longer than that, but time flies. And Freddie's in the comments saying hi. So welcome, welcome, welcome. For those of you who might be watching who haven't dropped into the comments, let us know you're watching. Krissy's great at developing community, and community showing up today to join this conversation. So let's get into it about the conversation at hand. So let's start with this baseline for digital marketers who are adapting to changing trends, changing things. Some of us might not really even know what Web3 is. We might kind of hear about it, but let's set that baseline. What exactly is Web3, Krissy?
Yeah, so I'm not a history teacher, but you're going to get a history lesson today. So let's go all the way back to Web 1. I remember being a sophomore in high school, and I had the coolest teacher, Mrs. Dirksen, and she introduced me to the World Wide Web. We used a search engine called Netscape. So that's an antique now, but Netscape, and we logged in, and the web was at my fingertips. And so really it was all information. My husband just recently used the term hot link. So a hot link was really just a link on a web page. So you could click it and it would take you to another web page. And that's really all the internet was just a collection of hot links and information and articles. There was nothing that connected people on it, besides email. And then we moved into Web 2, which became about e-commerce and social. So one of my favorite movies in the whole wide world is You've Got Mail. And on the trailer of that movie, you hear the modem dialing up, and then you hear Meg Ryan say something about, you hear those 3 words, you've got mail. And that's when people really started to connect online. You had forums that you could, participate in, and we're kind of seeing that again. Like we even see it in this community. And now we are transitioning. I say it's like I live in Kansas, so Colorado is right on the other side of the border. And when you are driving into Colorado, Western Colorado, or Eastern Colorado rather, is very flat. You don't just hit the Colorado border and you're in the middle of the Rockies. You have to drive for quite a ways, but as you're driving, you don't realize it, but you are actually driving into higher elevations. And so you don't just like hit the mountain and all of a sudden go straight up. And that's kind of where we are between Web 2 and Web 3. We're going up. The elevation is getting higher and higher, and we're in that transition. We're in the midst of this transition. And Web 3, really what it is its experience. So we had information in Web 1, we had social and e-commerce in Web 2, and now Web 3 is about experience.
Oh my gosh, I love that summary. And I was relating so much as you're speaking to a couple of things. I just rewatched You've Got Mail on HBO here a couple weeks ago. It's on HBO right now. And I rewatched it, and I hadn't watched it in a really long time, but I love that movie too. So nostalgia.
Yes.
And then I really like that analogy of you don't necessarily go straight up. Things evolve over time, which one of our great community members, Kaz, is saying he never really thought about it as evolving or as different webs just kind of gradually evolving. So, I think it's kind of like when we talk about generations, there's not a line in the sand that we say everything before this date is this generation or Web 2 and everything after this date is Web 3, but that's definitely where we are headed.
Yes.
When you mention that Web 3 is about experience, so social media managers might have a hard time conceptualizing how our work really fits in with Web 3. A lot of times you hear about Web 3 as blockchain and NFTs and things that are much more technical than the kind of marketing or community work that we've done, right?
Yeah.
So what does Web 3 really mean if you're working social media? What does that mean for us as social media managers?
So I saw that my friend Chris is on a panel talking about, is social media or is it entertainment? And I've seen this shift happen quick, like in the last few months even. I was telling my students on Monday they had presented to a client, And after they left, we were talking about this shift in community and how we are showing up as social media managers. And I said, in the past, if I was consulting with a client and I was pitching them my ideas, I might include a couple of social media posts that they could share or that I could share on their behalf. And this time when we pitched this client, we were go work with content creators. And the reason we want them to go work with content creators is because content creators are creating this experience. They're creating this entertainment. At night when my husband is watching Wheel of Fortune, I'm on my phone watching Instagram reels of these people that I follow. One that I really love right now, and I'm going to throw his name out. It's ethanbarber.co. He's a photographer in New York, and he shoots reels as if he's behind the camera. And I think they're absolutely gorgeous and beautiful. And I'm entertained by them. I'm influenced by him. I want to go to New York City. And I also bought his calendar. He has created an experience for me. I get to see New York City through his eyes. Chris Stone and Jim Fuse, they presented to my class earlier this semester on Amazon selling. And afterwards, I stayed on Zoom and I caught up with Jim. And he said, I really need to get into the Web3 space. And I said, what do you mean? You're already in it. You and Chris are creating an experience through your live selling. I can watch your show. I can be entertained. And then as you're talking about products, I can click on them right there. I don't even have to leave the screen. I can click on them right there and go buy that product. You've created an experience for me. And so it's not all about NFTs. It's not all about, crypto and AR and VR. Really think about how can you entertain your audience and your community? How can you create cool experiences for them instead of just broadcasting your products to them? You see this through brands like Duolingo and Scrub Daddy. They are entertaining. They're entertaining their audience through their content. Last Christmas, actually, so I was following Scrub Daddy on TikTok, just kind of like as a case study. I wanted to see what they were doing. I think they do a fantastic job, and I bought a Scrub Daddy, and I was showing it to my mom, and I was like, "Have you seen these? They work so great." And she said, you can get the knockoff at the $1.25 tree store. And I said, but I don't want to. Like, I know them. And then right there in my kitchen on Christmas, I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm my own case study. Like, they've influenced me. I've bought into their brand. I feel like I'm a part of the brand, and now I'm not going to sway from the brand because I see them. They entertain me. They make me laugh. And I love their product, and they've sold me. So, shift the way that you're thinking about Web3. It's not all about technology. It's also about human behavior. And so how are you going to create experiences to capture their attention?
Oh my goodness. I know about Scrub Daddy. I don't follow them. I think I probably should now because I'm interested in what they're doing that's entertaining and what they're doing that's that's influencing your behavior. So that's another one I'm going to go follow. So I do really appreciate that perspective, Krissy, that it's not necessarily about the technology. It's about shifting how you're thinking. So I think as a takeaway for more traditional social media managers whose roles typically have been aligned with more marketing communications or more recently community management, that there still is space for you in Web3, and you don't necessarily have to learn all the technology, but you have to adapt to behaviors.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, so speaking of adapting to behaviors and thinking about Web3 and thinking about community management, you taught a class at WSU Tech that was, I think, it's not a new class, it was just a new mode of teaching this fall. Is that correct?
Actually, it was a new class.
New class. Okay.
Yes.
Tell me a little bit about this class. It was a community management class, and I know you were doing some really cool things there. So I want to nerd out with you about what you did to help this next generation learn about community management in a really cool way.
Yeah, so community has always been my thing. I love community, building the community at Quick. I met so many amazing people around the world who are still a part of my community, and I'm just so grateful for those relationships that I've built. And I saw the impact of that network on our brand. There's no way that in 10 months, just me, I could not reach people in 77 different countries. I barely know people in 5 different countries, let alone 77. And so really it was through the power of influencing and relationship building that we were able to build that. And so I wanted to bring that here to WSU Tech into the program. And I was going to do all these things like Facebook groups and Twitter spaces and, the stuff that we know now about community building, all these different tools and tricks that we use. And then I went to social media marketing world and I was listening to Kathy Hackle talk about the metaverse. And it just struck me that if I taught the status quo, I was going to be putting my students at a disadvantage when they go out into industry. And so I came back and I asked for some funding, and we bought some Oculus Quest 2 headsets. And so I'm not teaching VR. We meet in VR. So we use Horizon workrooms that's our classroom space. And each week, our students strap on their VR headsets and they come to class. And so we have avatars. And just last week, I had Jen Cole come and she guest spoke. And so I created her an avatar on our extra headset. And she came in and taught the class in virtual reality. The great thing about that is, and we did our research, I think there was another college that was, teaching in VR, and we looked at what they were doing, and it was like the typical, it looked like a lecture hall, right? Like with the gray walls and the gray carpet and the hunter green chairs. It looked like a college lecture hall, and it was super boring. And I told the team here, our instructional technologies team, I said, no, if we're going to be in VR, we're going to be in VR. And so the students, I'll come in and they'll switch the room around. And so sometimes we're, on the beach and sometimes we're in a cityscape. Each week we get to change. Some of the weird things that have happened in VR, I was sitting at a very small table with Jen last week, and her foot touched my foot under the table. Well, in virtual reality, I was sitting next to my student, and in my mind, I thought, oh, his foot is hitting my foot. And really, in the physical world, it was Jen's foot that was hitting my foot. Another time, I was in a classroom by myself in the physical world teaching, and I was sitting next to a student in virtual reality. And he leaned over, and I leaned over myself physically, even though I was by myself in a room. And so I'm learning, and this is all learning for me. I'm learning that even though it's in a virtual space, it feels very real. And I think that that is amazing, that we can connect this way as humans in a virtual space from anywhere in the world. It's pretty awesome. I just have one little funny story about this class this semester. One of my students, as I'm lecturing, I'm like, Zach, what are you doing? Because it looked like he was petting the kid next to him. And he goes, I'm petting my dog. And I was like, oh my gosh, it looks like you're petting Brandon. So like the Oculus was, reading his hands, and it looked like he was petting the student next to him. And really, he was just at home petting his dog. So just some fun, crazy stuff. We're also exploring how to build community on Discord. So that's a whole new platform for me. Tonight, they are hosting a winter break movie party on Discord through the voice channels. and we're watching Polar Express. And this is for the whole digital marketing program. So they are the ones that are facilitating the Discord community and building it out there. It's like our virtual campus is what I call it.
Oh my gosh. So a lot to unpack there. And I think Tim has a really really good insight here about the ability to change environment is the plus of VR. However, as you were talking, and I'm a mom of two kids who are probably going to be not necessarily, I think maybe they call their generation Gen Alpha, like the one behind Gen Z, that they will pick this up much faster than I do. I've never used an Oculus headset. I've never used a VR headset. So it's a little bit overwhelming, all that technology. How easy is it to pick up and use for people who might be scared to even dip their toe in?
Yeah, it's super easy. It's definitely like the first few times that I used it, I would get motion sickness. Now I don't anymore. Like it's become I'm used to it, I guess is what I'm trying to say. I'm used to the feeling of being in virtual reality.
Okay.
But really it's like super easy. It's point and click with your I don't know, your handles.
So you've talked about some of the technology and some of the spaces, but let's shift the conversation a little bit to that Gen Z audience, that for those of us who are more seasoned in marketing, that we're trying to sort of figure out, we feel like they're a nut that has to be cracked. What insights do you have about where Gen Z is spending time and spending money online, and how is that shifting?
Yeah. So I thought it was Discord. I was wrong. I just last month was at a high school event and I had a booth and I had my headsets there. And as students were coming up to my booth, I was just kind of pulling them, what do you use for social media? And this are the high school students, so juniors and seniors. And they were like, we don't use social media. Almost every single one of them, Ruth. We don't use social media. And I was like, do you use Discord? No. And so I was like, well, how do you connect with your friends? Like, do you just use the text app? And they're like, oh, we use Snapchat. So they don't even see Snapchat as social media. For them, it is a messaging app. I was listening to one of Mark Schaefer's podcasts recently, and he had a guest on, and she was talking about these digital campfires. She has coined them digital campfires. So Gen Z is no longer, they don't want to be a part of this large online community. They want these more intimate spaces where you have a smaller group of people. So I love the show that you had yesterday about dark social, because that is going to be the norm. That's where we're headed, is into these smaller, more private communities. That's where Gen Z is gathering, and not these massive communities that we see like on Facebook or even Twitter. So that's where they're headed, but they are not using social media. I asked them, are you using Instagram? Sometimes. I was like, how do you use it? DM. So it's really interesting.
Yeah, I was thinking about that dark social panel as you were speaking. So I did drop the link to that dark social panel hosted by Christine Gritman yesterday in Social Media Pulse community. That link is there. It was very, very interesting. And I do see a lot of overlap with this idea of dark social. For those who are just kind of coming around to the idea, is anything that's happening online that we can't really track as marketers. We're so ingrained in our analytics, and we're so ingrained in being able to follow through and report on our ROI, but people are meeting in these smaller places, places that are more private, that we can't see. That's why it's dark. So I think there is this idea of shifting community paradigms, Gen Z, Web3, dark social. There's so many. If it was a Venn diagram, the circles would be very, very closely packed together.
Yes.
Yeah.
So Ruth, you also asked me how they're spending their money.
Yeah.
And I don't know, like where they're spending their money, but I do know who is influencing them to spend their money. And really that's the content creators that you see on TikTok and Instagram Reels. My daughter, she is an older Gen Z. So she's like right on the cusp of Gen Z and millennial. And I met with a wedding planner that I know personally for lunch a few days ago, and she's been using Instagram, but only static images. And I said, if you're thinking about your bride, really, they're no longer on Pinterest. They're not looking at your Instagram feed. They're watching TikTok videos. So you need to be on Bride Talk is really where you need to be. So influencing them through these content creators. And I love the creator economy. Really, that's where I've seen the biggest shift in the last few months. You're seeing huge shifts on Instagram. That's where I'm spending a lot of my time researching. I have this account called the Midwest Cottage that I'm actually, it's research for me. It's fun. Like I love doing it, but it's also, I'm just testing different theories. So if you follow it and you're like, what is Krissy doing? I'm testing theories. I think digital marketers, we are scientists, right? Like we develop a hypothesis, we go test it, we look at data, we pivot, we try it again. And that's what I'm doing on that account. And so now, you're getting bonuses. Instagram is paying content creators to create reels. They now have the notes in your DMs, so you can start conversations.
That just showed up for me within the last couple of days.
Yes.
Filled it out to me.
So that's a whole part of dark social and these more intimate spaces, right? Because last night I actually had a few conversations that were started through those little things. I had one that said coffee, 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 and the other one said thinking about paint colors. And I had a few conversations based on those notes that I had put in there. So I love Instagram though, because they are transparent about how they're changing the platform for content creators. And this is not specific to NFTs. This is also anybody that is creating content. The head of Instagram has a TED Talk where he talks about this. And I highly recommend that you watch it if this is an area that you're interested in. But really, as brands, we need to align with these content creators, or as social media managers, we need to think about how we can create content that is influencer-like. WSU Tech, we have an amazing content creator that creates our TikToks for us. And just this past summer, she helped me with summer camp for 7th and 8th graders here in Wichita. We made TikToks. Like how much fun is that? It was lots of fun. And they were like, I know, I've seen her on TikTok. Like they were whispering, like she's a celebrity. She has influenced them. So I'm not talking about high schoolers. I'm talking about the next generation of students. So, but she creates this entertainment. She creates this experience. She's the influencer of the college, but she is our content creator on staff.
Okay, let's talk about content creation for a minute then. Do all social media managers have to become content creators?
No, because there's still other platforms, right? Like podcasting is huge right now. Gen Z and millennials, they're listening to podcasts. And so, social media managers, if we need people who are creating that type of content. You still have to have people who are, I guess if it's specific to social media, you still have to have people who talk about the brand, that are still educating their community and their audience on how the brand works, what the brand is, what it stands for. That doesn't always come through as like as a piece of content that you would traditionally think that like the part of the creator economy would create, I guess.
Yeah.
It's not entertainment, it's more information. I guess we still have to have the information side, but it's just not going to get the same reach and engagement that you're going to see from the entertainment side of social media. But I still think that you got to have some of that, right? Like you still got to know, where do I buy a scrub daddy? right?
True. Yeah.
What are the reviews of a scrub daddy?
There has to still be web presence. There has to still be the traditional marketing. And I think that's something that, I mean, it's framed with different words and it's framed up as something new, but this is an age old challenge with marketing communications is, are you a generalist or a specialist? You know, there's back in the day, you also needed to know how to write press releases and work with staff writers in a newspaper in order to work in marketing. And that's can still be a specialty, but you don't have to have that skill. And
Yeah.
I think, you know, content creation and social media management and community management, of course they overlap, but you can specialize if you want to. Speaking
Yeah.
of entertainment, I am going to roll it back to a comment that Kaz put in earlier. So he works a lot in gaming, or not in work, doesn't work necessarily in gaming, but spends some time in gaming, and says, I've kind of always thought about social media as entertainment. So what really is that shift where it's not just a nice to have, but a have to have now?
I mean, our attention spans.
Sorry, I removed you instead of me for a second. So speaking of attention span,
Yeah, attention spans are shortening. You know, it was 3 seconds. Now we're down, I think I read somewhere, we're down to like 1 second. And so, you know, if you're going to capture the attention of your audience, you've got to entertain them. You've got to, I tell my students, you know, see what everybody else is doing and then do it differently, because you got to stop that scroll. If you're doing what everybody else is doing, then nobody's going to stop on your content and pay attention. And so you got to capture their attention. And how do you do that? You entertain them, you shock them with something, and then in a good way, and then, you know, provide them some value, whether that's through, you know, something funny. I probably shouldn't say this, but my favorite account right now on TikTok is a guy named Cornbread Cowboy BOI. And it's just this guy, and he wears like these NASCAR t-shirts and these polyester like Western pants, and he plays this like 90s country music, and it's just him walking. Like every single TikTok is just him walking, and then he has some kind of caption over it about like he went to the honky tonk that night and drank too many beers and got in a fight with his ex old lady's new husband. I don't know why I'm entertained by them. Like it's probably trash content, but I am entertained by it. And every time I see one, I stop the scroll and I watch it. And so it doesn't always have to be, when we talk about value, you know, people are like, oh, things that they can use. No, sometimes it's just entertain me, just make me laugh. And so, yeah, we're going from, yeah, it's nice to have, to, yeah, you got to have it. I had a student just this week tell me that she read somewhere, and I can't quote it because I don't know where she saw it, but it's probably a quick Google, you could find it, that TikTok has surpassed Netflix on entertainment. Now, I don't know if that's the number of people using it or the number of minutes that it's being watched, but people are watching TikTok more now than they are Netflix. So yeah, I think you got to have it.
Yeah, that's crazy. I bet it might be minutes watched. I remember a few years ago when the statistic came out that especially Gen Z and those younger were spending more time on YouTube than on streaming services, you know, and based on the behavior I saw from former students when I was teaching in a university, and then also now my kids, like absolutely they're on YouTube, and my kids aren't on TikTok yet. I'm sure that that's just a ticking time bomb, no pun intended. They're not there yet, but you know, that's where they're spending their time. And I think this is a good summary too from Kaz, that I think it's just this idea of colliding. Like gaming understood entertainment for a long time. Maybe marketers didn't really, not all marketers understood that need for entertainment. And now there's kind of this shift, and gaming is leaning more into information and entertainment and education, and marketing is leaning a little bit more into entertainment. So I think that's a really good.
Yeah. And I think Kaz is so right. I don't know, somebody wrote something about this recently about how gaming has really, like gaming is everywhere now, right? Like we're not just playing League of Legends, that's gaming. Like gaming is part of all marketing now.
Mhm.
If you're familiar with Freddy's Frozen Custard, that started here in Wichita, and I was at a networking event a few weeks ago, and I was talking to the social media manager there, and they are not yet at the point where they have an app that you can order on like Chick-fil-A,
Mhm.
but they're working on it. And I was like, oh my gosh, Logan, I have to show you my Starbucks app. And so I have gamed the Starbucks app to where I have so many points now that I get this little bar and it has like these glittery little stars in it. And I was at Starbucks with my daughter, and she saw me open up my app, and she was like, why aren't you using your points? And I was like, because I've got this beautiful, bar of stars. Like I don't want to lose that. And then also I didn't realize I was doing this, but I accessorize my app by when I get gift cards, they have those fun designs.
Mhm.
And so each season I will transfer the money from one gift card to the next so that I'm using that season's gift card. And so I was showing some of these like weird human behaviors that I do when I'm using that app. And so even like Starbucks in their app, when I order my coffee, it's an experience.
Mhm. Yeah,
Yeah.
and that right there is just that whole encapsulated as you yourself are a case study again
Yes.
about building community and gamification, and again all these things that are unique and separate but also really really overlap, and it's just this really neat we're in a very interesting time, I guess is a good way for me to put it, because it's hard for me to
Yes.
think about a different way to describe that. And I'm going to roll back up to a comment that Tim made earlier that's going to make me chuckle. But we were talking about Gen Z, and Gen Z is absolutely not doing chuggy things that we might do. The thing, we're here older than Gen Z having this conversation about Gen Z, but also we exhibit these behaviors as well. But when we do it, it could be chuggy. And when the kids do
Yes.
it, it's not.
This conversation to them would be chuggy. Like, why are you talking about Web3?
Yeah.
That's chuggy. That's
Yes.
chug. That's
We
cringe.
all already know what it is.
Yeah, we just do it. Why do you have to talk about it? Exactly.
Oh, we talked a little bit about platforms, about um, Discord and standalone communities like ours at social media
Yes.
pulse.community, standalone community. There are Slack communities. I think Facebook groups are still relevant. So, what are some trends that you see, Krissy, not specific to Gen Z, but just specific to community management in general, where we should be keeping an eye out and thinking about how we can incorporate community in what we do as social media managers?
Yeah, so now we're going to get to the technical side of Web3. And I've learned a lot of this from Mark Schaefer, actually, that, Web3 is going to put the control back into the brand. Our data, it's going to be more decentralized, our data. And so, in Web 1 was decentralized. Everybody just kind of owned their own stuff. And then Web 2, you had these huge servers like Google, Microsoft, Facebook, that now own our data. And that's a conversation every day, as is data, isn't it? And so now we're transitioning back in to this decentralized era of data. And so you will see brands like Agorapulse move their community off of Facebook groups onto their own platform. Gwen Stefani did the same thing. She recently launched a line of makeup, and she sells it on her e-commerce site. And a part of that is also this social community. And so rather than hosting her community on a social platform, she has taken control of that data. She's taken control of the data of her audience and her community, and she hosts it on her own platform. And you're going to see this in the creator economy too, as we shift. And this is something that the head of Instagram talked about in his TED Talk. Creators are going to be able to own their content. like an NFT, and you'll be able to subscribe to it, which we're already seeing on Instagram. You can subscribe to content creators now for exclusive content. And so they will own their content. You can subscribe to it. You can get access to it. They control their content rather than the platform controlling their content. And the beautiful thing about that is that now you have more control about what your community sees and when they see it. We are at the mercy of the algorithms presently. And by transitioning our communities off of these platforms, we now can speak to them more transparently. They get the information in real time rather than seeing it a few days later. And I just think that this transition is so amazing and wonderful. One concern that I do have is I don't buy into the theory of if you build it, they will come. And so how are we as marketers going to get these people to be a part of multiple communities instead of just going to one piece of real estate? So that's going to come down to community and really building out, a group of fans and building loyalty in those fans. And that's going to take work.
Yeah, I'm so glad that you mentioned the if you build it, they will come, because what I was Googling while you were chatting was the monthly active users for Facebook, because I get third quarter of 2022 still growing, right?
Yeah.
So Facebook still remains very ubiquitous. So as a marketer or as a social media manager, weighing that decision between, do I go where people are still on Facebook, even though it might be chuggy to some,
Cringe.
people are still there.
Yeah.
People still spend time there. It's still just, if you want to reach a large group of people, you can do it there, or any of the other kind of more well-known social media platforms, versus a smaller group of engaged people in a community on a different platform. How would you weigh that decision as you build communities for, and I know I'm sure that's a big generality, but what are some of the things that you would think through if you were building community?
Well, you have to think about the demographics, right? Like, so we know that Facebook, Gen Z is not on Facebook. If they are, it's only because their grandma wishes them happy birthday on their birthday. And that's the only reason that they're on there, is for those birthday wishes. All three of my kids, they don't use Facebook. My daughter will use it to announce big life changes, like when she got engaged or when she changed jobs. But for the most part, she stays off of Facebook completely. Recently, I just took it off my phone and I don't miss it, Ruth. I check it on my desktop, but I've taken it off my phone and I do not miss it. So I think as a digital marketer, if you're trying to hit them all, you're not, I say, if you're marketing to everyone, you're not marketing to anybody. So, think about the demographic, think about the audience that you have on each platform, and only attack the ones that make sense for your community. So if you're not trying to reach an older demographic, you're trying to reach a younger demographic, I don't know that having a presence on Facebook is smart. You might just be spinning your wheels and not getting anywhere. So really think about where your community is at, what social platform they're using, and then attack that one if you want to bring them over to your own community.
Great. And yes, I will thank you for that. And I'm replying to Kaz's comment in the in our chat that he had thought that Facebook had faced its first decline ever, and it did at the beginning of the year, but it's bouncing back. I guess I should clarify. They're, you think they might be down, but they're never out. But I do like that perspective of, if you're trying to market to everyone, you're not marketing to anyone.
Yeah.
So I think that the takeaway that I have from the conversation that we've had about Web3, about community, about trends and things, is that it's important for us to be aware, and it's important for us to think about how we can capitalize on and align ourselves and be poised for changes that are coming. But you don't have to put all of your eggs in one basket, and you don't have
Right.
to do it. It can be, as you mentioned early on, it can be that gradual incline. So no
Yeah.
doomsday. You must be on Web3 and you must have NFTs for your business and you must gamify an app. Don't have to, but it's nice to know that those trends are happening.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's important. I think, NFTs and the blockchain is going to benefit content creators, people who create, artists. I think that there's huge benefits in that, but we're still in Eastern Colorado right now. We haven't even hit the Rockies. We just see them in the distance, but things are already happening. We're going to higher elevations. So yes. And, I spoke about this over the summer, and a seasoned marketer here in Wichita, she said, "How do you know this stuff?" And I said, "Well, I subscribe to a few newsletters. I just read about it. Each day, I just take a little bit of time and I read one or two articles. That's it. I listen to podcasts like Mark Schaefer, who has experimented into his own social token community. I'm a part of his Discord. I'm learning from others, and I'm just experimenting. So you just got to keep informed about what's happening."
Yes. And a great way to keep informed for those who are watching, either now live or during the replay. That is entirely the point of Social Media Pulse community. So we have shows like this where we're educating and exploring new topics so you can learn about it. We have courses. We have a newsletter that goes out that summarizes the news, but then also the true value of what we are doing in our community are those community members themselves who are having conversations, sharing information, sharing challenges, sharing wins, sharing tips in the chat and in conversations that are happening all the time. So if you're watching and joining us for the first time and you're not a member of the Social Media Pulse community, you should join. It's a great place to get information, to learn, to grow. So socialmediapulse.community is where you can sign up to do that. But speaking of other communities, I do want to throw up this comment from Tim because I actually do relate to this one a lot. So talking about kind of the ebb and flow of Facebook, and Tim comments that ironically though, for very specialist groups, often Facebook is a place to find them due to its sheer number of users. There is a Facebook group for everything. I can attest to this. That's currently where I find most value on Facebook are in groups, those smaller niche groups. And speaking about a Facebook group for everything, here's an example of a Facebook group that showed up in my feed as you might be interested in joining. I think it knows my demographic. It was a vintage Rocky Mountain and Wrangler jeans resale group. Do you remember those?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. So you're from Kansas, I'm from Oklahoma, and grew up very rural, small town, Western flair. We're not really South, we're not really Southwest, but in Oklahoma, very Western fashion. And the Rocky Mountain blue jeans, if you don't know what those are, just Google them. They're coming back around. The kids don't think they're chuggy anymore or cringe. And so I got recommended this group for this resale, and I'm thinking I should have saved all those.
That's amazing. I did see somebody wearing a pair recently, and I was like, oh no. Oh no.
They're back. They are back, and they're selling for a pretty penny. So just again, a little personal side there, but to illuminate the point of there are Facebook groups for everything. There's community for everything, and you can find it lots of different places, and you can build it lots of different places.
Yes.
So I have learned a ton today, Krissy. And are
That's
there
good.
any final thoughts that you want to share, things that we haven't talked about or trends that we need to be looking out for?
I think, just I think brands really need to think about influencer marketing, really connecting, building community with influencers, or if you want to call them content creators, and using them to help sell your products and services. And the reason why is that, and I didn't come up with this phrase, but people don't trust us as brands. They trust the people that talk about us. And so, aligning yourself with these content creators that are going to best talk about your brand and allow them to be authentic about it. I asked my daughter, like, what's the best eyeliner right now? And she can tell me. And it's because she has watched a makeup artist on TikTok named Michaela. And Michaela is really honest about the quality of the product. And so, this kind of goes back to Amazon reviews, right? Like, do you buy anything without reading the reviews? Not really. So it's because we trust what other people, even strangers, are saying about the brand. So really be thinking about, as you are talking about your marketing strategy for next year or the year after, how you're going to align with content creators, because that's the shift. That's where we're moving.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So let's talk a little bit about your helping train people who are going to go out and possibly be content creators. So how can people who are watching this show or in the community connect with you or maybe your students?
Yeah. Well, we're on Facebook. We're on Instagram. We are That Digital Marketing Program. And it's dmk.ict on Instagram. We do have a TikTok, so you can connect with us there. Really, like, this is a place where students are creating content. I talked about us being, scientists before. They create the content, they measure it, and then they learn from it, good or bad. And so this is a place that they are sharing content. But also, you can just reach me personally on all the social channels. Krissy Buck. I think it's Krissy S. Buck on Facebook, and Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn is Krissy S. Buck.
All right.
Yeah.
And in the Social Media Pulse community, in the comments, if you have a
Yes.
question for Krissy or would like to add to this conversation, go ahead. Here is that link again for this specific conversation in the community. I was not quick enough to type in or grab the links to those places to connect with you, Krissy. So we'll add those in the comments here for the show, and then also in the community. This has been a really great conversation today.
Thank you.
I enjoy nerding out about new things, and I appreciate you sharing your wisdom, your insight, and as Tim would say, you're down with the kids. So
I try.
I am happy that you are a little bit of our tour guide here today. So thanks a bunch for joining us for the last episode of Office Hour for 2022. We're going to be taking a break until January 5th. So go ahead and go back, watch the replays, join conversations in the Social Media Pulse community. We're always there, even when Office Hour is off the air. So thanks a bunch for joining me today, Krissy, and for those watching online in the replay. I hope that you have a great rest of 2022, and I'll see you back here in 2023.
Bye.
Bye.